What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Huddle. Happy Friday to you all. Thanks for joining us on YouTube or on podcasts if you're listening to the audio-only version. A less than stellar Thursday night football game, but Harrison Butker late field goal covers the spread for Chiefs bettors. More exciting was the Houston Cougars Hail Mary against West Virginia to hit the money line there. Apparently, I saw on Twitter, plus 3,500 when the Cougars got the ball back with like 14 seconds to go. Today on the show, we'll be talking Thursday Night Football. We'll be talking Week 6. We've got picks. We've got 2-minute trivia, but I'm going to be asked the questions this time. We got a little MLB Playoffs, but allow me to bring in my co-host here, the much more intelligent Tony Farmer from all the way down there in Texas. Tony, happy Friday. How's it going?
Happy Friday to you. I don't know about that much more intelligent thing, but I'm excited to get episode 3 started with you, brother.
Yeah, let's do it. And I want to talk about the Week 6 board. Like, I was looking at it to begin the week here, and like some less than stellar matchups here, especially as an NFL fan, but maybe some spots as a football bettor. But like Ravens, Titans, Commanders, Falcons, Justin Jefferson-less Minnesota Vikings at the Bears. Like some really like not appetizing games here. I do like the lines at the Bucs, though. Potentially a good game there. We'll see what either of those teams are made of. What's your take on the Week 6 board here?
I'm with you. I mean, yeah, that Lions-Bucs game will be decent, but if that's like the premier game for the slate that you're most excited about, I think that does speak to kind of how watered down it is this week. We've been lucky in weeks past. You know, we've had Dolphins, Bills, and games like that get you really excited. 49ers, Cowboys. It's a little less sexy of a schedule, but as a bettor, I do see some opportunities on the board. We're going to do our picks later on in the show, and that's the beauty of sports betting, isn't it? You know, you've got these matchups that you don't really care about, and all of a sudden sprinkle in a couple wagers, and now all of a sudden you care. Like with last night's game, we knew the Chiefs were probably going to win that game in the third or fourth quarter, but people hung around because that point spread was in question throughout the entire contest.
Yeah, big time. And Harrison Butker, friend the football bettor, came in money there. And just a quick note here, another London game this week. The Jags did win straight up as 5.5-point dogs last week, but Faves are dominant in London games, 20, 11, and 1 against the spread, I believe. What do you make of these London games? And especially from a time zone perspective, I know you're in Texas. Is it too early potentially for a Sunday morning for you, or are you vibing with the London game kickoff in your time zone?
In the central time zone, it's perfect for me. But like on the West Coast, when I go out to Vegas, that's a bit early. 6:30 a.m. For a kickoff is a bit rough, but I enjoy these early morning starts. It's less anticipation time. The only complaint that I have is there's a little bit of prep work that goes on Sunday morning. You're waiting for the inactives to come out. You're double checking things. You're reading what beat writers have to say. And when there's a game going on, it does kind of distract you from some of that. So there's some pros and cons to it, but overall I like it.
Yeah, I love the Mountain and the West Coast time zones for sports. It's so amazing. I put that out there on Twitter, on my personal Twitter earlier in the week, and someone came back with a good point that if you're a fan of like the Premier League football, then those early Premier League Saturday games, that's tough to get up for. One note I wanted to put out there for you, Jets-Eagles this weekend. Jets are winless all time against the Eagles, 0-12. Straight up against the Eagles. So just a note for the bettors there. But let's get into the Thursday nighter here. In your opinion, I know we talked about Harrison Butker, the late field goal covers the 10.5 there for Chiefs bettors. They win, 19-8. And I believe NFL Scorigami tweeted out that it wasn't a Scorigami, but it had happened one time before, which bizarre enough was on October 12th. 1927, I believe. Yeah, 19-8. Yeah, one more. So however many years, 96 years to the day or whatever it was. But what did this game tell you? Was that the Chiefs get right game? Like, are they back for you, or have they not really gone anywhere?
I wouldn't say they're back, right? I need to see more from those receivers. I'm very impressed with the Chiefs defense. I think a lot of those players who have now been in Steve Spagnuolo's system, their defensive coordinator, been in that system for a while, they're starting to kind of gel together, and the defense looks solid. But the Chiefs of yesteryear that we're used to with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and having all these different weapons. Now it's just running through Kelce. So while that was great for Kelce fantasy owners last night, and it was nice to see him have a big game, I've got concerns that he is the offense. What if he goes down with injury? What if you're going up against a dominant elite defense in the playoffs that has the ability to shut down your top target?
Kadarius Toney, first touchdown of the game was 19-1. Cortland Sutton, anytime touchdown, plus 240. Harrison Butker, over 7.5 points. And of course, got to give a shout out to Mitch. We sort of ragged on him with his Thursday Night Football pick last week. But last night, he had Kelce over 67.5 was, I believe, his total for receiving yards. That cashed with ease. So props to Mitch on that one. I want to talk a little MLB here. MLB playoffs, just insane. I mean, we talk about like wanting upsets in the postseason. Maybe no other sport delivers better in that regard than Major League Baseball. So, Tony, 5 teams had at least 92 wins in the regular season, combined 1-13 in the MLB playoffs so far. Like, absolutely insane. So, series prices as follows: Rangers plus 117, Astros minus 140, D-backs plus 136, Phillies minus 162. Obviously, Dodgers gone, Orioles gone, Braves gone, those best teams of the playoffs. Astros plus 180 to win the World Series, Phillies plus 190, Rangers plus 280, D-backs plus 500. What do you make of the MLB playoffs, and who's caught your eye potentially in those World Series futures markets?
Before I answer that, a fun little fact: Red Sox led the AL East in wins in October. They didn't even make the playoffs because they got at the very end of the regular season. Kind of
Unreal.
a wild stat. But to answer your question, plus 210 is kind of who I'd look at here. I don't know that you want to listen to me about baseball futures, because I was the guy on the future episodes that said I like the Braves at plus 300 or above. What a stinker they put up. I mean, for a team to be so dominant and well-rounded throughout the regular season and then up in the playoffs, what a disappointment. I mean, not quite as exaggerated as the Bruins last year in the NHL, but you got a team that has just looked so good and then just disappoints. What a bummer for those fans. Going forward, though, Phillies plus 210. I just love that lineup. And when they're gelling, I mean, do you want to be a starting pitcher going up against the 3, 4, 5, 6 hitter up? Absolutely not. So I guess I like the Phillies at this point, but I don't have a high level of conviction in it right now. These baseball playoffs have been nuts.
As far as MVP futures, Bryce plus 750, Seager plus 850, Yordan Alvarez plus 950. How about Nick Castellanos, 18-1? Last year, this dude hit 185 in the playoffs. Now he's got a 1440 OPS, 4 homers. Or Jose Abreu, 35-1, and he's leading the postseason in RBI. Has anybody caught your eye individually in terms of those World Series MVP markets?
I like the Abreu one that you just mentioned. How about Trey Turner, though? This is a guy who's really streaky and someone that can turn it on and put together some really good games. Led the postseason in stolen bases so far. He's a guy that I think could have a big World Series, and at those odds, it's pretty juicy. 16-1, 18-1.
I love Trey Turner. I mean, this dude, ever since he got off to that slow start there and Phillies fans gave him that standing ovation, he took out that billboard in the city of Philadelphia to thank the fans. He's been on fire. You can't keep a dude like that down for so long. Texas Rangers really leaning in to Creed. It's giving that song, Take Me Higher. They've really leaned into that. I guess that all started when they were having a rough patch there in the second half. Really giving me vibes of like 1979 Pittsburgh Pirates. We are family. Not that I remember those days, but you hear the stories of Willie Stargell and all that back in 79 when they won the World Series. In your athletic days, Tony, did you have any go-to music to get the team pumped up? Was it even Creed?
Well, first of all, we have to define what were Tony's athletic days, because I was never an athlete growing up. I was a chubby kid. I did play baseball, for my town, from like little league up to senior league. And I was okay. 1 year of freshman football, but I never got to play. So no hype music for me, because I only got in the games if we were up by a lot or down by a lot on my high school's freshman football team. So get me hyped up though. How about a little Nirvana? How about a little 90s grunge? Little bang the head a little bit, get the juices flowing. That would be my hype music if I had anything to be hyped up for.
Yeah, for sure. In my high school basketball days, we were listening to some 90s hip hop. That was always good to get the guys pumped up. And yeah, like the grunge era, the Pearl Jams, the Nirvana's, great shout there. Want to talk a little bit about Super Bowl NFL futures here. I mean, we're both Niners fans. I feel like, and deservedly so, the Niners are playing probably the best football in the NFL right now. But is there anybody else that has caught your eye in terms of Super Bowl markets? Like who else is even touching the Niners right now? I know the Eagles are unbeaten; they're looking okay. But like anyone else out there?
I think the Niners are in a class of their own right now, and I also think the odds are a little too low. I saw like plus 300 or so for them to win the Super Bowl last time I looked, and so I don't even recommend betting it at this point. Although they are, the best looking team by far in the NFL. Taking a look at long shots, Andrew. When I look at long shot odds at this point in the season for the Super Bowl, I'm looking for a team that doesn't necessarily have to win the Super Bowl in order to make me money. You know what I mean? It's a team that can maybe win a game or two in the playoffs, and then I can hedge at that point and make some money off of it. So when we're looking at some long shots, I want to throw three at you and tell me which one of these numbers you like best. Crazy long shots. We've got the Falcons at 70-1. I can't stand the Falcons. I think they're overrated, but their schedule is so easy going forward. And we did just see a good game from Desmond Ridder. So that's a team that you could easily see making the playoffs and then maybe scoring an upset, and then you can hedge it off and make some money. 70-1 is pretty juicy. Two more for you. This one's a little outlandish, but I'm going to throw it out there. Jets 130-1. There are some rumors that maybe an outside shot, Aaron Rodgers could come back for the playoffs. And we're seeing a little bit of improvement from Wilson. So at 130-1, be a consideration if you believe in miracles.
The Jets, not bad. Like as a Niners fan, like love Robert Saleh. They've gotten some wins here. So what about futures for MVP? And my angle here is Brock Purdy and CMC. Like these guys have soared up the odds board, and deservedly so. Like McCaffrey scores every week. Brock Purdy, no interceptions. I think 9 TDs at this point for him. Is there anybody on the Super Bowl or the NFL MVP odds board that has caught your eye beyond Brock or CMC?
Well, with Brock and CMC, by the way, are you worried at all about them splitting each other's votes because they're on the same team? That's something to consider. In years past,
that's a good point.
And you never looked at a non-quarterback in years past for the MVP. And CMC is certainly making a case. I've got a ticket for Brock Purdy at 20-1 that I made in September. I'm obviously feeling really good about that now that those numbers have gone down a little bit. But Tua in Miami would be the guy to kind of look at. What do you always say with Tua? He's one hit away from his career or season being over. So always an injury concern with him. But just the way that offense is putting up prolific numbers and the weapons that he has, that would be somebody else that you'd have to give a serious look at for MVP for sure.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I believe, who was the last running back to an MVP? I think it was AP back in the day. So CMC, still a lot of work to do here. We're only going into week 6. How about Jared Goff, 33-1 with that very good Lions team?
That's juicy at 33-1. I think Goff is a quarterback who's better than like the public thinks. You know what I mean? Like when you do a deep dive into his numbers and his analytics, like you go, wow, like Jared Goff's actually pretty good. He's not that same guy who struggled with the Rams. I will say this though, a little better's note on Jared Goff. He has small hands and his numbers when it's like bad weather, snow or rain are terrible. So look for some opportunities to fade Jared Goff later in the season when he's playing outdoors. But at 33-1, I can't fault someone for betting it. I'm not going to bet it, but it's not bad.
I absolutely love the small hands handicapping here. This is why you come to the Huddle, to get some small hands handicapping. But speaking about like weather and things like that, I know that we had some wind in last night's game. And then just sort of looking ahead here to the weekend, like there's some potential weather issues in the Niners-Browns game, potentially maybe some rain in Ravens-Titans, Vikings-Bears, potentially some weather in the Giants-Bills game. And this is an important lesson or educational piece for maybe some new bettors. What's your take as an experienced bettor, like you do your research, you're doing your handicapping, how does weather play into it for a fellow like you?
I think a lot of people think like rain and snow under, but the history doesn't back that idea up. It's really the wind. When we start getting over 15 and 20 miles per hour, that's when you really want to start looking at the under. So a couple things to consider here. One, I'd look at multiple weather reports because you can look at 3 different weather websites and actually get, different information. Some of them are more updated than others. Track the weather throughout the week. Sometimes early in the week, we go, oh my God, that's going to be a bad weather game. And then by kickoff, it's fine. So keep those things in mind. Also, be careful chasing. Like last night, we got a game where the total started at 52. By kickoff, it was 47 and a half. And yes, under bettors cashed on that. But too many times, people just chase the under going down, and then they're in the game too late. So you got to kind of consider the timing of it there. You don't want to get the worst of the number when it's already dropped by 5 or 6 points or something like that.
And then again this week, the Minnesota Vikings in a very, very interesting spot here without their guy, like Justin Jefferson. I believe he's out for 4 games at least here. But they're in a spot here where they got a division game. They are 3-point faves on the road at the Chicago Bears, but without their big playmaker. What do you think about handicapping that game and looking at the Vikes moving forward here in the next few weeks?
I bet the Vikings at -2.5. I still like them in this game against Chicago. Some people are getting excited about Chicago because of that game against Washington, but I think Washington was just tired in that game after a tough divisional game against the Eagles. So I know this is 2 weeks in a row where we've seen some signs of life from the Bears, but I'm not buying into it just yet. And I also think that the Vikings, even without Jefferson, are just crucially underrated at this point. Their record is terrible, but when you look at a lot of the analytics, they're a solid team. They're a middle of the road team. They're not an awful team, and I think the Bears are an awful team. So, despite not having Jefferson, give me the Vikings to cover here.
Yeah, Vikings a weird one. I've sort of been not high on them, but I feel like I've bet on them a few times and been sort of let down with them. But it's the opposite to last year where they were sort of punching above their weight, like that record in 1-possession games and whatnot. And now statistically, analytically, yeah, they're good, but just not getting the job done there on the scoreboard. Also not getting the job done as we pivot a little bit to college football was the Miami Hurricanes. Last week, I know you saw this. They blew a game versus Georgia Tech. This is something that has happened with Mario Cristobal in the past, even when he was at Oregon. They were in the same sort of spot against Stanford. They could have kneeled. They didn't. They lose in OT. This is just incredibly, incredibly poor coaching. What was your takeaway from that game and what we look ahead for the leave on the road at UNC this weekend?
I think it's a fireable offense. I mean, the game is over. We talked last week about how players in the NFL are sliding instead of scoring. Like this should be on the forefront of everybody's minds. And when it's a rookie in the NFL, not stepping out of bounds when they should have, you're like, oh yeah, they're just a rookie. This is a head coach of a program, of a good program. The standards need to be higher. I mean, there is no excuse for it. I will throw this out there though. When you look at that replay, and I've seen some still shots, I don't think that was a fumble. Now, I don't have any sympathy for Cristobal whatsoever because of the awful call he made, but I feel like people aren't really talking about how the fact that the runner was down and that shouldn't really have been ruled a fumble.
Yeah, I think you're right on both counts. Like I agree with the fumble there. I think that might have been a bad call, but then yeah, it is a fireable offense for Cristobal. Like that is just so poor and something that he's done before. How do you not just take the knee there and get the win? And college football is so much better when the U is relevant. And with this loss there, it's tough. And another big game coming up this weekend. But I believe, Tony, that you have some sort of 2-minute trivia here for me based on this week.
I sure do. And I'm excited to put you on the hot seat for a change here. So I've got the trivia for you. This is sports blunders throughout history. I'm going to be asking these questions. All right. So
I'm going to set the clock here.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. It begins. Ready?
Yep.
Now.
In the 1993 National Championship game, we're talking basketball here, he infamously called a timeout when his team didn't have any.
Chris Webber.
Nice. Webber was a member of Michigan's Fab Five. Can you name 3 of the other 4 members of the Fab Five?
I can name them all. Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, Ray Jackson.
Oh, what a show-off. He gets bonus points. In 1994, this New York Knicks player had one of the worst NBA Finals games ever, shooting 0 for 11 from three-point range.
Charlie Ward?
John Starks. This Major League Baseball outfielder gave a Cleveland hitter a home run when the baseball bounced off of his head and over the fence.
Jose Canseco.
Nailed it. 1993 Super Bowl, Dallas's Leon Lett fumbled right before crossing the goal line. Which Buffalo Bills player knocked the ball out of his hand?
I think it was Don Beebe.
Nailed it. Nice work. Leon Lett also had a Thanksgiving blunder when he touched a blocked field goal in the snow. Who was Dallas playing in that game?
Oh, I'd pass.
Gotcha. That was the Dolphins. In the 03-04 NFL playoffs, which quarterback infamously said, "We want the ball and we're going to score" during the coin toss, only to throw a game-ending pick six?
Was that Matt Hasselbeck?
It was. Nice work.
Let's go.
1986 World Series, Red Sox first baseman Bill Buckner had a ground ball that went through his legs. Who was the speedy Mets batter who hit the ball?
I believe it was Mookie Wilson.
Nailed it. Who were the 3 teams involved? There were 3 teams involved in the infamous Herschel Walker trade.
Okay, Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings. I can't remember the third.
Most people don't. This is a tough one.
Time's up. I'll just throw one out there. Was it the New Orleans Saints?
It wasn't. It was the Chargers. They got a little bit of compensation in that trade. They were a very small player in that trade. But, dude, you crushed it. I think
How many
you got,
did I get?
And you
I
get
got
bonus
7?
points. I believe you got 7 out of 9 because I asked you 9, and I think you only had to pass on 2. So that was impressive, man. Very, very
Let's
impressive.
go.
I got a long way to go to catch up with you, man.
Hey, man, that was a great batch of 2-minute trivia. Let's get into some quick-hitting picks here, Tony, for the weekend. Let's huddle up here. Give me some picks. Start with your number 1 pick here. What are you looking at?
I like the Colts plus 4.5 against the Jaguars. I like them live, to win the game. It's the Gardner-Minshew revenge game. I actually think I only give a half-point handicap difference between Richardson and Minshew. He's solid. He's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league, and he's going up against his former team, so you got to expect a big game from him there. Jaguars on a tough travel schedule, coming back from London. They were in London for 2 weeks, and I really like the Colts pass rush. DeForest Buckner inside against the underbelly of that Jags offensive line, which is really weak.
Love it. Minshew Mania. Love that pick there. I'm looking at that Niners-Browns game, but I'm looking at the Niners team total. I got it at 21.5 at even money early in the week. It's up to 23.5. 33.4 points per game, 30 points in 8 straight regular season games, and it just gets better, it seems, that Niners offense. Browns defense, really, really good for sure. No complaints. Absolutely shut down Cincy and Tennessee. Maybe showed some cracks against Lamar and a banged up Baltimore Ravens offense. So maybe the competition that they've faced so far this season has been a bit flattering. Plus, what the heck is going on with the Browns at the quarterback position here? This line has been going crazy all week. He's not been practicing. He's not even talking to the media. I feel like if it's DTR or PJ Walker that gets the call for the Browns, I feel like they could get some points on the defensive end or at least force some turnovers for some good field position. What's your second pick there?
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be P.J. Walker there. And how about a team total under on the Browns is maybe worth a consideration as well in that one. But I like your pick a lot. Next, I'm going to go with Texans plus 1.5. This is a great teaser opportunity, by the way, to tease them up to 7.5. But Texans plus 1.5 against the Saints. I'm just not sold on the Saints. Who have they beaten this year? They barely got by the Panthers. They were crushed by the Bucks. Yeah, they had a big win against the Patriots, but the Patriots don't look very good at all. The best team they beat this year was the Titans, and they barely won that game. There was an awful call at the end of that game in week 1. They probably shouldn't have won that game. So I think the Saints are a bit overrated, and I think the Texans are underrated. Texans are getting healthy at the right time, especially on the offensive line. And to steal a line from Seinfeld, CJ Stroud is for real, and he's spectacular. This guy looks really good with a bad offensive line. So now that he's going to have more time in the pocket, got to like CJ Stroud and the Texans here.
Yeah, we talked about the Texans a couple weeks ago that they look really good, and they haven't disappointed. Saints, I believe, the only team left with a perfect record for under bettors. I think they're 5-0 on the under. My second pick, looking at that Panthers at Dolphins game, taking Dolphins against the spread, 13.5-point chalk here. Carolina 0-5 this season, 0-4-1 against the spread, double-digit losses in all 3 road games so far, so nothing different here. Dolphins 5-2 all time versus Carolina, 6-1 against the spread. Beat them by 23 points when they last met a couple seasons ago. Number 1 net yards per play team here. Panthers 3rd worst in the league in that regard, and not very good on defense against the run, especially. So I think it could be another track meet here for the Fish. Take us home here, number 3, Tony.
I've got another favorite to cover here, like the Rams -7 against the Cardinals. This is a team, the Cardinals, we talked about them last week. I said they were feisty, like the Cardinals. They're starting to, I think, have some cracks in the foundation. James Conner's going to be out. This guy's averaging 5.4 yards a carry. He is the life of that offense. So I don't think it's going to be easy to replace his productivity. I don't know that there's anybody in the secondary that can deal with Nakua and Kupp for the Rams. And Josh Dobbs, I think, is coming back down to earth a little bit. He threw his first interception last week, and then he threw his second interception in the same game. Dude had a completion percentage under 50%. So I think the league is maybe starting to figure him out a little bit. I like the Rams to cover here in this spot. I don't usually like to take home division heavy favorites to cover. I usually like to take the dogs in these division matchups, but just the way this is shaking out, I like the Rams here.
Last one for me. I'm looking at college football here. Cal at Utah. Give me Utah at home here. They're down to 11 now. I think they were 13.5 earlier in the week, maybe. Absolute machine at home here. 17-game winning streak at home. 11-6 ATS in those games. Off a bye as well. 10-3-1 ATS off a bye in their last 14 at home. Dominant head-to-head versus Cal. Won the last 4 games versus Cal. 3-1 ATS in those games. That's at home at Utah. And then won the last meeting with Cal here, 35-zip in 2019. And a nice bounce-back spot here for Utah after a tough loss to the Beavers last time out, 21-7. So a nice little bounce-back spot for Utah. And this was 14 earlier in the week. I have here now 11. So going to take a chance. Utah doesn't do a ton with the ball on offense, but that defense is still good, and that home field advantage is for real. Anything you like in college football by any chance as I put you on the spot here?
I got to be honest, I'm so focused on the NFL right now. I'm in this giant survivor pool. 80% of the pool is gone. It's got a $9 million payout. So I've just been so tunnel vision focused on the NFL. I haven't even got a chance to look that much at college this weekend.
Make sure you follow Oddshark on socials, at Oddshark on Twitter, at Oddshark Sports on IG, and at Oddshark Betting on TikTok. Are you on TikTok yet, Tony?
No, I'm not on TikTok with the kids yet, man. I'm an old man. It's going to take me a little while to figure that one out.
Thanks for watching on YouTube or listening on podcast. We appreciate it so much. Good luck with your bets. Love you all. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week on The Huddle.